Hey, Bible Methodist family. I'm so glad each one of you are here today. I'm Darrell Stetler, the conference president of the Mid-America Conference, and I'm with Brother Steve Snodgrass and Brother Clair Sams, and we are welcoming them to the Bible Methodist family as the brand new Southwestern Conference of the Bible Methodists, and we are excited to have them join us.
Thank you.
We're here in Tennessee and Dixon at the camp meeting, their very first camp meeting where they certified the vote to do this week. And so we're just kind of here to talk about that process, share some of the details with you so that you'll know how things have gone and the care that's been taken. I feel like God has guided and directed and has had His hand on every step of this process, and I'm truly, truly thankful for that. And so, welcome, gentlemen. I'm really glad to have you. Glad to have you on board. I know I speak for the guys in Mid-America and the other conferences. We're really just tickled to have you on board. And so, some years ago, Brother Snodgrass was elected. I guess it was 13 years ago or something like that. 14. I don't know, somewhere in there.
It would have been 2008.
2008. Okay, so 11 years. All right. Was elected as the leader of what was then the Pilgrim Nazarene group of churches. And in that journey that they were on, we had some of the PNC folks. We got to know each other a little bit here and there. And in that process, they felt like they were kind of being led in this direction. And so some conversations happened. And I think, Brother Snodgrass, I think my question, the first question I had when all this came up, was I said, okay, why Bible Methodist? Because I wanted to know why not Pilgrim Nazarene, or why not some other group, or why Bible Methodist? And so I'm curious, how would you answer that?
So I think I answered it then that there were several things. Number one, we were at a place where we were needing to transition due to the dynamics of our churches, the demographic layout. We were we had a broad footprint, but it was very shallow. But in looking at what we had, there were no Bible Methodist churches, for the most part, in the areas where we had churches. That was one thing. So we were not going to be infringing on the territory of anyone around us. Number two, so we knew you guys from your ministers, from we had you come to camp and to preachers' meeting, to our and with revivals in our own churches. And I believe that there was a common bond. We've obviously felt a kindred spirit through all of that. Mm-hmm. And so that was drawing to us as well. And then, of course, there was also discipline. Our discipline and your discipline were almost mirror copies. So I believe that was also a drawing card. And then timing. It was the right time for this to happen. So I was in a conversation. I had felt for some time that it was time for me to step. I say sometime, for several weeks, that it was time for me to step down. And there had been several things that had happened. There had been some physical issues, and when those things started cropping up one more time, I told my wife, now's the time for me to resign. So I did that. It was not until about a month later that I had a conversation with Brother Avery. And he said, hey, Steve, you ever thought about this? And I thought, we have. It's been a great concept, but didn't really know that it would ever happen. And then about a week later, out of the blue, one of my board members called me, and we began to talk, and he brought this up as well. I had not said a word to him, and that's kind of what got the ball rolling.
Yeah. So you feel like the Pilgrim Nazarene season here was not something of like, oh, this is an experiment that failed. It was like how would you explain that?
Well, not at all. And in fact, in 2003 we left the Bible Missionary Church, and we love our heritage. We love the people, but it was a time for us. It was a time for us to start the Pilgrim Nazarene Church. At that time, a greater part of our churches were in the Southwest. they did not know the Greater Conservative Holiness Movement.
Right.
I lived in Indiana, so I did have connections. We went to IHC every year, but for the most part, our people didn't know. They didn't know Darrell Stetler. Okay, they didn't know like I say, the greater movement. And so it was very important for them to hold together. I feel that if they had not had that organization structure at the very beginning, that they could have gone in many different directions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
And so Pilgrim Nazarene was, and I like to say it this way, was a vehicle to get them from 2003. And as we began to transition, we invited other people in. We invited God's Missionary, ICHA, Bible Methodist, other folks in to preach our camps, to preach our preachers meeting, and our people began to go to IHC and get involved in that regard. I feel like that they became accustomed and they realized what was out there. Yeah. And really it was our people that spoke. It's not just necessarily me, but our people spoke through this whole process that they thought that this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's I like the analogy there, because I have a family car, a large family, and my car is getting down to the end of its useful life in a certain sense, but it has gotten us where we wanted to go, where we needed to go for a period of time. And so, yeah, that's good. That's helpful. Brother Sams, you served as Heartland Conference president for
16 years.
16 years. Okay, so as long as I've been pastoring out here in the Midwest. So I remember when you had decided to retire or step down from that. I don't know if you knew what the Lord had laying out in front of you.
But not at all. In fact, if somebody would have told me, I would have told them that it was beyond incredible. My resignation as conference president with Heartland was not out of tension, and it was not a retirement, and that's okay.
Okay.
I just felt like the conference needed the younger guys to step up, and that's happened, and God's blessing them richly.
Good, thank the Lord.
And Melvin and I actually, we just felt like probably we'd be pastoring. I just thought maybe a few months, and then a church would open up, and we'd spend a few years pastoring.
Right.
That didn't happen, and in conversation with one of the board members, the PNC board members, he said, "Would you have any interest in this?" And that conversation sort of, we brushed that off because it was part of a larger conversation that included more items. And it was during a revival. So the next night, I said to the fellow when he came to church, "I need to talk to you after church." And he said, almost at the same time, he's saying, "Well, I need to talk to you." So after the service that evening, we had some other things that we also needed to discuss, but he came back to this: would you be interested in possibly leading the Pilgrim Nazarene Church? And my response to him was, I'm willing to pray about it, and that's sort of the first step. So
here we are.
Here we are.
so pack up in a 1,000-mile move, and all of that. So, well, I want to ask this question because, and really, if both of you, whoever has something you want to kick into this answer, I want to know. I know people, one of the questions I had is this being done in a Bible Methodist kind of way? And by that I mean that there's a patience to it, there's a transparency to it. We're trying to make sure that everything is above board and done well and as honestly and openly as we can. And so that was a question that immediately would come to my mind. And so I've been privileged to see behind the scenes a little bit. But I'd love to hear you guys answer that. It sounds to me like I've noticed that great care has been taken at the different steps of this process, and things have been handled very judiciously. But give me some how did this develop, and what kind of process did you guys follow on your end before they do, while they're thinking about it? The General Connectional Committee was received. They received a the official request from the Pilgrim Nazarenes. Before they even did, there was an informal request. And so the General Connectional Committee met and considered that request and talked over it at significant length in Cincinnati at a board meeting there. And as we had that executive committee meeting, they laid out something of a pathway. We laid out something of a pathway. So here's how we're going to try to proceed. And so as that pathway is unfolding in the process, you guys were at work as well. And so go ahead.
So initially the conversation started with casual conversations between myself and a couple of fellows on the Pilgrim Nazarene board, as well as conversations that went on between President Snodgrass and Dr. Avery, who's the connectional chairman for the Bible Methodist. In that process, I was invited to come to the Pilgrim Nazarenes, and the board then elected me as their general superintendent. And part of my mandate, what I have said to people that I've talked to, is that the two primary mandates I had regarding joining the the Pilgrim Nazarenes and being part of their leadership was to lead discussions and possibly create a path to become Bible Methodist, and of course to provide the normal leadership that's part of the person in that area of responsibility. So that's part of the beginning of that. Do you want to tag on to that?
Well, I would just say this, that we were extremely careful we went by our discipline and did this according to the proper procedure. Even went so far to hire an outside counsel to review everything that we had done.
Wow.
And his counsel was very valuable to us.
To make sure that it was in harmony, that what the way you were doing it was in harmony with both disciplines.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that he could remove emotion from it and doesn't know the past. He's looking at the black and white. So the legal aspect of it was right. Then also there is one thing, and that is the people did have a voice in this from the very beginning. It started with Brother Sam's meeting with our ministerial committee, and those men reviewed him, brought him in. That was done according to our discipline. Then we took to the next step, and that was drafting a resolution that would walk us through this whole process. In doing that, we had the support of the board. There were, if not all, many of those were unanimous votes. And in the special conference that we had on July the 5th or 6th of this year.
June 6th.
June the 6th. That was the largest conference body delegates that we have had in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And
so a very broad base then.
Absolutely.
In terms of involvement from the churches and the lay. Wow. Yeah. Good.
The process on the Pilgrim Nazarene side was the general board we voted to adopt the resolution. We voted to call a special conference. We voted for a location for that special conference. At the same time that's going on the Bible Methodist side, the Connectional Committee has voted to receive our letter when it arrived. And so after the Pilgrim Nazarene Special General Conference, and that was a plus 80% vote, 85, I don't know the exact numbers, but after the Special General Conference vote, a letter went to the Bible Methodist Connection. Those men met and unanimously recommended that each of the annual conferences vote. Those conferences have voted, and the General Conference, the Connectional Committee, again voted to ratify that. In the process, while that's happening on the Bible Methodist side, on the Pilgrim Nazarene side, after the Special General Conference, each of the local churches had an opportunity to vote, and they all did vote. As far as the ones that responded to us voted. So each local church had an opportunity to participate in this process as well. Driving
it all the way down to the local
That's correct.
levels.
And then that came back to Pilgrim Nazarene General Board, and that vote was ratified.
Right.
And so that's the technical process that's gone on.
Right. And I want to ask one more question of you guys, because I know in these kind of processes, emotions happen and feelings happen, and different narratives develop about how things happen. And I just want to know, is there any? Can you give me a sense of how this has progressed and where we are as far as so that maybe to counteract some things that might be misunderstood?
Well, from my point of view, when I came into office, there were, including the missions, if I understood correctly, there were 17 churches. When we started in the process, even at the same time that I came into office, we lost a couple elders who were distressed partly with me. A little while later, a church and another congregation that's connected to that church chose to disassociate themselves from the Pilgrim Nazarenes. And then a little bit later, another congregation chose to disassociate. So from where we started, that's 3 congregations that chose not to be part of what was going on. Mm-hmm. Initially, in my early days in this position, I realized that there were at least a couple men in leadership, elders in leadership, that were not interested in becoming Bible Methodist. Mm-hmm. I went out of my way, and I felt like the board went out of our way not to antagonize that or to do anything that would make those people any more uncomfortable than just the normal process.
Sure, right.
But in our process, early on in our process, we realized that we needed to confirm our incorporation, because there was quite a bit of confusion over the PNCs that actually at one time had 2 different Pilgrim Nazarene names. Both of them had been incorporated. Neither one of those documents had been kept up to date.
I see. And
there was confusion over what we were operating under, which PNC incorporation we were operating under. So the General Board, in response to that, unanimously voted to incorporate in Texas as the Pilgrim Nazarene Church International, to clear up the smoke of those old incorporations.
I see.
In the same general time frame, we also then worked through and developed the resolution to move us to Bible Methodism. And so we already talked a little bit about that process. So it went from there. General Board voted on the incorporation. The General Board voted on the resolution. The General Board voted on holding a special General Conference. All of those votes were unanimous. Mm-hmm. At the special General Conference, that vote was a very strong vote. And then all of the churches have had opportunity to vote since then. And I mentioned that already, so I don't want to be repetitive. But each elder and each church in the Pilgrim Nazarene organization received emails, text messages, and letters informing them what we were doing, what the timeline was, and what that would look like.
Right.
So I felt like we have done all we could do to diligently take care of the proper paperwork and investment.
Right.
Every congregation that I was allowed to speak to about this process, I spoke to and answered questions and tried to keep them informed. Mm-hmm. The mission organization or the mission church that we have helped manage, I sat down with the pastor and the leadership there and basically said to them, you tell us what you choose to do.
Right.
We want to help you, if we may, but we don't want you to make a decision about whether you come Bible Methodist or not on what we can or cannot do to help you. We want you to make that decision because you want to be on the team or you don't want to be on the team.
Right.
They've chosen to come along. I feel like we've gone way out of our way to try to bring, I like the term you used, the Bible Methodist culture in the sense of openness, open communication, and peaceableness as much as we possibly could. So,
Right.
Pastor, do you have anything to add to
No,
that?
just in addition to every member of a Pilgrim Nazarene church, every member received a certified letter stating, requesting their voice in this as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this went all the way from a board level down to grassroots to a member.
Right.
And I think that was overwhelming. In the special conference, I didn't say this earlier, but in the special conference that had an overwhelming delegate number,
Yeah.
in that group, all churches were represented except for I shouldn't say all, but all but three
Right.
were present and their voice was being heard. Of those three that missed, two of those, it was just impossible for their leadership to be there, or they would have been, and they expressed by verbally to Brother Sams that they were for this. The other one, we never received any contact, or there was no response from. So
Right.
there's not much we could do for that.
Sincere effort was made. But just
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is, at that special conference, when everyone voted for this, it was overwhelming. Those that were for it, and that were there to speak their to make their voice heard.
Tremendous. Good. Quite a number of votes, quite a number of conversations. In the middle of all this, there have been informal meetings as well, where representatives from Mid-America have met with Pilgrim Nazarenes. Part of the reason for that is because the way the executive committee laid out the path, Pilgrim Nazarenes have come into the Bible Methodists as a provisional conference called the Southwestern Conference, and they've come in alongside Mid-America. Mid-America has currently 5 churches, a couple of others that are about to join. But we have about 5 churches. You all have about 10, 11 now.
11. Well, 10 churches and a mission.
10 churches and a mission. So these two have come alongside each other, and basically the plan that the executive committee, the general connectional committee rather, laid out was to have these two conferences just come alongside each other. That way it allows the Southwestern Conference to get used to the gears, the machinery, the positions, the job descriptions, the division of labor, and those kind of things. And so it allows us to continue to grow as a fledgling conference ourselves. So in the process, we will grow alongside each other. We'll cooperate, collaborate in as many different ways as we are able. And then in 2021, which will be 2 years from now, there will be, Lord willing, a merger conference between those two, and we'll progress forward and make organizationally official what we hope to make as practical as possible right now. In fact, we've been talking in informal meetings. We were tasked by the General Connectional Committee with getting together. And so the last time was in Oklahoma City. There were, I think, 8 guys that were there, 4 from each of the conferences. We had several hours of discussion and fellowship, talking about how we can work together in things like church planting. And in fact, we're taking a trip together pretty soon here in September, out into New Mexico to talk to a couple of churches that are wanting to join missions to the Navajos and things like that. So we're in the process of discussing and being open with those kind of things and working across those lines, even though there are 2 conferences. I think the thing that I would want everybody to know is that there's a tremendous amount of unanimity and unity within this group, that we're not scared. As Mid-America guys, we're not afraid that y'all are coming in to try to jerk the rug out from under our feet, and I don't think y'all are scared of us either. No. So I'm encouraged about that and excited about those possibilities going forward. I'm very hopeful. I've sensed this week, as I mentioned, we're here at what was the Pilgrim Nazarene is now the Southwestern Bible Methodist camp, and I've sensed just a beautiful spirit. I don't know how many people have come up to me and said, we are so excited about the future. We're looking forward to it. I'm talking about pastors and lay members and just a cross-section of people. And I'm encouraged. I'm hopeful. I think that, not to drop names, but Jesus once said, if you're going to drop one, that's what it is.
Yes.
Jesus said, by this shall all men know you're my disciples, if you have love one for another. And I've sensed that this week and among these guys. And so I've full confidence in each one of y'all.
Well, I thank you, President, Pastor, Board Member, Stetler, for, and I don't mean that to be humorous, but I thank you for taking the time and investing in being here. I know it's very meaningful to the people with PNC background to get to know the Bible Methodist guys, and the fact that several fellows from the former Alabama, now Southern Conference, have been here for a few days of services. Brother Cravens is coming in, I think today, maybe tomorrow. But our people are hungry to get to know the Bible Methodist family in large.
Right.
And I can tell you that everybody that's talked to me that's part of this, that wants to be part of this, is really excited about what's happening. One of the exciting things for me is every young person to a person who's talked to me about this process is very excited. And,
me too.
And sees it as a significant step, both in collaboration and in the sense of unity and ministry together. So I think that has great value as well.
Unquestionably, yeah. I would echo that. I don't know how many times over the last 15, 16 years that I've been involved with young preacher guys coming through college. I don't know how many times I've been asked the question, how come we can't all work together? Why are there so many different groups, and why can't we stay together, and why isn't there more coming together? I don't know how many times I've been asked that question, but it is a boatload of them. And so I'm excited about that because I feel like it makes a statement to the world and a statement to those who are believers that God's people can come together.
Sure.
And
well, as one of our board members said, that time and history has proven that, especially among the holiness ranks, that we know how to split and we know how to divide.
Right.
And it's a privilege to be able to be on the other side of that and show that we can come together and unite for the same cause.
It is. And I should probably just say, because, sorry, I'm going to choke up here, but that's meaningful to me, to be able to have that opportunity, because the body of Christ being torn apart, I think grieves and hurts him, and I think it ought to grieve and hurt us as it happens, and so to be able to see it put back together, there's great celebration when someone comes through an operation and they're whole again, and that it's meaningful to me because I say, well, praise the Lord. I think there's hope for God's people. It's not just a nice thing that we say. There's a reality to it and a joy about it. So I'm excited.
Well, the exciting thing as well, not only the comments and sense I get from the young people, but from my point of view, this vehicle, and I see it as a vehicle. So being part of an organization, it is church, but it's also a vehicle that the Lord puts us in a place where it's through that vehicle that we can do the ministry that He's commissioned us to do. And I think the effectiveness is much larger if we're able to lock arms with other people of like faith and doctrine and focus. And the vision that I sense in the Bible Methodist community is exciting to me, and I know it is to the pastors that are part of this process. They can't wait to go change their signs.
Yeah.
In fact, do I say this? You can edit it if you need to. But
I can. Yeah.
we have a guy. We have a beautiful Spanish church in Dallas, I wish Pastor and I could be here, but
It's vibrant.
he told us the other day, he said, I've already changed my sign.
I heard it blew down. Is that right?
Yeah, it blew down,
The old
and
sign blew down.
In a storm, and he just said, we just put a new one up. It says Bible Methodist. Kind of a neat side to that, a little side, and you might want to include this, is part of, in anticipation of what's happened this week for us, for the Southwest Conference, and also in connection with what happened in the Alabama Southern Conference just a few weeks ago. We have been in communication with Brandon Hilligoss, who does our branding, and he has already rebranded the Southern Conference's signature material. He's prepared signature material for us, and he's built for us a Bible Methodist signature that's all Spanish.
Oh, nice.
So that's available not only to we actually have two. We have a Spanish church, and then we have a Spanish sort of like home mission work that's part of one of our congregations. So I felt like it was valuable for those communities to have Spanish language identity, and also we can make it available. I don't know why we didn't think of this when we did the branding. We've got to work in Mexico, and we didn't do any branding for them, so it's available for them as well. So I think that's a neat kind of aside to all the stuff that's going on right now. So
making room, making room for that to happen. Well, praise God. That's encouraging. Well, I hope these things help each one of you kind of get a feel for where we are, and we're all on the same page out here. I know we're a long ways away from the Heartland Conference, Great Lakes, and the Southern Conference, but though we're a long ways off, we love you all, and we appreciate you, and we're excited to see what the Lord's got for us. And we just want to let you know that we're linking arms out here in the Midwest, and God's moving, and the kingdom of God's going forward. And we're excited to be part of it. So.
And the Southwest Conference says thank you to Blake Jones and Brother Parker and Brother Cravens and Dr. Avery for your greetings and for your warm welcome. Thank you, Brother Darrell, for providing this vehicle and for bringing greetings to us as well. Thank you.